Welcome, Hop Nation podcast viewers. Today, I'm really excited to have an old friend and colleague. Well, he's a young guy, but who I've known for a few years now through different avenues. Aaron Parkinson. Welcome, Aaron.
Hey, thanks for having me on the show.
Thank you for giving the time. I know things are a little crazy here in 2020, and you're in Grand Cayman, and there's some storms going through here this past week. So
I just chalk it all up, man, to 2020 now. We've had, hurricanes rolling by. They're kind of rolling by right now. We've had an earthquake. We've had an out of control dump fire that you could see from, space. We've got all the COVID stuff everybody else has got going on. And I'm just waiting for the locusts to show up and put a pin in it. But you know what, man? There's yin and yang to everything. And we've never been busier. So you got to take the bad with the good, right?
Absolutely. And, what doesn't kill us literally makes us stronger and makes us more resilient and able to handle when, crap comes at us sideways and from all angles, up, down.
Absolutely. It's one of those lessons that nobody wants to admit and nobody wants to have to go through, but it's your challenges that make you who you are, not your successes.
You bet. Absolutely. Good words. Well, for those viewers who don't know, I'm going to give a brief intro to Aaron. Aaron has been helping companies dominate their industry with digital marketing for over 15 years. He's lived and breathed digital marketing, and he believes that great results come from combining an irresistible offer with the right message, and then you put it in front of the right audience. He's currently the CEO of Mile Media, an elite digital marketing company located in the tech hub of the beautiful Cayman Islands. He's also founder of the payment processing company ScalePayNow.com and the sales management software GoPipelinePro.com. So welcome, Aaron. And what else wasn't said there in the bio is you're a competitive fighter as well, which is something we share. You were way more talented than I was, but
I used to be. I'm 43 now. And people ask me sometimes, do you still fight? And I say, you know what, this isn't like soccer. It's not like, baseball. You don't go play some soft pitch on Sunday and drink some beers with the boys. You either hurt people or you get hurt in the fight business. And age is not your friend.
It is not.
So I don't do a whole lot of competitive martial arts anymore because the brain tells me what I should be doing, but the body doesn't react at the speed that it should.
I fully understand. And I know our mutual friend just announced retirement after being one of the greatest in the sports. One of your sponsored athletes from before, and Daniel Cormier.
Yeah, Daniel Cormier went out with a one last world championship fight. Unfortunately, he came up on the short end. I haven't heard from him since that night. I'm sure he's off brooding and licking his wounds, but what a remarkable career for a guy that didn't even get started in the sport until he was 34, I think.
Right, and decorated Olympian, like just a world-class athlete, but more importantly, there's a guy that performs at a high level that's a good guy. Just a good man.
He's a super good guy. And that's, he's had an opportunity to get dragged into some experiences where he would not be a good guy. And he's always taken the high road. He's a husband, he's a father. He's a wrestling coach at a high school in California. He's always, a giver. He's trying to, be the best person he can, as well as being the best competitor in the UFC. And I think that's really served him well. Now he's got the job on Fox, commentating the fights, got a great podcast with Ariel Harwani.
Yeah.
He's got lots of things going for him, made a ton of money over the last 3 years of his career that he sacked away. And, that's just such a tough business, man. Like, I try to explain to people all the time, I played competitive soccer up to the National Development Center level, and I played every other sport in between. And, I mean, how many games have you lost in sports over your career where you're like, we'll get them next Sunday kind of thing. When you're in the fight business, it's either all the glory or all the embarrassment and all of the heartache that goes with it. It really is a zero-sum game.
It is. And, it's probably some of the best athletes are mixed martial artists. Them and probably gymnasts I would put up there as well, because you have the flexibility, you have the strength, you have the technical. And, in the MMA game, it's so multidisciplined now. When it first started, it was, the different styles against each other. It was, which martial art or combat sport was the best, was how the mixed martial arts movement started way back UFC 1. And now it's something completely different. And these guys have strength conditioning. They have to train if you're competitive. And this isn't even just pros. The highly competitive people are 5 to 8 hours a day.
Yeah, it used to be that thing that people did for fun, and now it's the thing where if you're not fully committed with diet, nutrition, strength training, back in the day, like you said, it was like, oh, I'm a taekwondo guy, I'm a karate guy, I'm a boxer, I'm a wrestler. If you're any one of those things now, you're just going to get destroyed so quick because they're looking for that smallest opening, that smallest weakness in your skill set. And, that's ultimately what derailed, the end of my journey is I'm Canadian like you. Wrestling isn't really that big in Canada, especially not when you compare it to like Russia or the United States.
Right.
And, my striking game was good, but my wrestling game was nowhere near, some of these guys have been doing it since they were 5 years old.
Right.
And they'll only take 2 or 3 shots upside the head. And then they'll say, I don't want any more of that. And they'll grab your legs and throw you on your back. And it's like when you're a little kid, when they threw the blanket over you and then they started punching you when your friends did that, and you get all like claustrophobic and you're like, let me out.
It's like a hockey fight. Just pull the jersey over their head. Their arms are like this, and you're just, punching the heck out of them.
Yeah, and you can't get out, man. It's like like quicksand. You're just stuck there until it's over, and it's nasty. And I look back on those experiences, and I think a lot of that is really similar to business now, where if you want to get to a certain level, you got to be skilled at a lot of things. You got to be tough. You got to be durable. You got to be mentally strong. You got to know you're going to fail. You got to try and fail as fast as you can and learn from it and put it into your repertoire for the next battle. And, we were talking the other day, me and one of my friends, and he said, I almost feel like not embarrassed, but like a liar telling people that they should be entrepreneurs. He's like, even though I know that it can create the best life, the battle is miserable, the overall quality of life, if you make it through the gauntlet, is incomparable, to, having a 9-to-5 job. But there's an old saying that something on the lines of only an entrepreneur will give up a 9-to-5 job for an 18-hour day and risk all his money, and man, ain't that the truth?
Yeah. Well, and we've talked offline about how, everyone likes to talk to our wins and, the things that make us look good. But the reality is almost every entrepreneur and business person and leader at some point has had a setback. If you've been in the game 10 plus years, there's been a point or a season or something that was a major learning lesson. And I think the difference between those that persevere and go on to have subsequent successes after getting kicked in the ass, quite frankly, is how you get up after being knocked down. And I think that's where bridging that fight world and mentality with business, which, so let's move into the business side of this, because I mean, we could get rabbit holed into this because it's a passion we both share. But tell me the founder story. So how do you go from the background you had into entrepreneurship and now running a very successful digital marketing company in arguably one of the most beautiful places in the world? What's kind of the founder story, and how do you get here to doing what you've been doing the past 15 years?
Well, running a digital marketing agency is a really weird beast because, somebody comes to you either with an idea or with an established business that they want to do better at, and they're leveraging your experience, your team, to basically put, all their hopes and dreams on your plate. Mm-hmm. And it's unlike almost anything else because, not to bring the fighting thing back up again, but it's a zero-sum game. Like, get me results or you're fired. So you got to have a couple of different things. You got to have super thick skin because you got to be able to take the lumps. Yeah. And you also have to have a considerable amount of experience to be able to navigate the waters, because you don't have a lot of time to work with. And in my experience over the last 4 years, you got about 90 days to show the breakthrough or the client's looking for the door. And so it's like, how do you compress 15 years of experience into 90 days and execute? And if you get the result, clients will be with you forever. If you don't get the result, it's fire and brimstone. So, how did I get here? Well, I mean, going back and looking at the very beginning, I mean, I had very mundane jobs, server, bartender. I like every mundane job you can ever think of. I had janitor, not just janitor, but like midnight janitor, like at a grocery store, like 12 o'clock at night till 8 a.m. Like
ever change a puck in a urinal? That's humbling. Yeah.
I have changed a puck in a urinal. I've done all the janitor things. Yeah. When people say they dig ditches, I literally dug ditches, for a period of time. Right. And it's not that I was dumb. I was just unfocused. Like, I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I really feel like passion is the ultimate resource for whatever you want to accomplish. I was passionate about soccer. I was passionate about MMA, but I wasn't really passionate about any particular job or career path. I just knew that I wanted to be free and I wanted to be wealthy. And not for the reasons that most people wanted. I just wanted to have time, with my family. And so, my first foray into business was literally when I was working 2 jobs. I was working as a nightclub bouncer and a car salesman, and working like 16, 18-hour days. And my daughter was born, and I wasn't getting to see her at all, like 10 minutes a day. And that was sort of the snapping point, so to speak, where I was like, this isn't going to happen. I'm not doing this for the next 30, 40 years. And I ended up opening a newspaper, got on some phone call, ended up in a network marketing company, didn't even know what that meant. All of a sudden, next thing they're telling me to place newspaper ads and flyers. And I'm like, okay. And, that didn't work out. And that was in like the early 2000s when the internet had really just, become a thing. And so I was like, maybe I could generate my leads from my customers from this internet thing. And I tapped into it, and within a year, I was the number 2 producer in that company, almost overnight. And it just sort of snowballed from there. Like I realized that if I could do this in my company, maybe people could use my websites and my tools for their own companies. So I launched an education company and an internet marketing company that ended up in 100 countries with 80,000 students around the world. I sold that to my partner. Then I actually opened up my own network marketing company, thinking that the real money must be in the ownership. And oh man, was I wrong about that? I mean, that's nothing but drama and headaches and crazy distributors and, 3-letter agencies always asking you questions. And man, that was 3 years. That was just nuts. And, went through that experience. And then from there, I transitioned into e-commerce because I really wanted nothing to do with people. I didn't want any people impacting.
The battle scars were still healing, so you needed a break. Yeah.
I was like, what could I do that would have as little human interaction as possible so I could keep the crazy out of my life? And so I started an e-commerce business with a brand called Grace Cali Designs, where we basically found manufacturers in China that would make bags and purses and necklaces and earrings and all these kind of things. And I started a Shopify store, and within 2 months we were doing, about 50,000 a month in revenue. And by the end of 18 months, we were doing about 9 million a year. So in a year and a half, we built a $9 million a year business in the female accessory world. Like, me and this cop from New Jersey that is about one of the meanest looking guys you've ever seen in your life.
So two men.
One's a cop in New Jersey, with the handlebar mustache and everything, shaved bald head like you, looks mean, big growly guy, and awesome dude, one of my favorite people. But we're running this $10 million a year female accessory brand line, this beach themed, store. Nobody knew it was us. Like, we were just completely, behind the scenes. And I sold that to him after about a year and a half, and decided to open my digital marketing agency because, from, sort of over the last decade, I had run ads in so many niches at that point that I had a really good grasp on how, ads needed to be written and sales funnels needed to be created and follow-up needed to be done and customer service teams needed to be built. And if you had sales teams, how to build the sales teams and train them, because at that point we had done everything that we had been involved in, had done about 500 million in sales. And every client that we had ever generated was from the internet. Like, I've had like one brick and mortar business in my whole life, and it failed. Like, it's not my jam. My jam is how do I take somebody's business, somebody's idea, create a presence for it online, and drive leads and sales into that business. And so I opened my digital marketing agency, and it was just me. One person became 2, and 2 became 4, and now 4 became 40. And, we've got clients all over the world at this point. So it's been a really crazy ride.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Well, my question, in the digital marketing space, it's such a busy area, and I'll have people reach out through LinkedIn or email somehow from overseas in all these low-cost countries that want to provide, or there's the software and do it yourself for a couple $100 a month. Now, your market is doing a major spend every month. Like, you're an elite level, higher end, where, they're spending tens of thousands to multi-millions monthly. So how do you get through the noise? Because, and then I want to talk about how have things changed in this remote work environment? And I know your business has exploded, so it's been a good thing, but really, how do you get through the noise? And what do you say to those people who are looking at the options, and, how do you justify to a client, this is the budget, when they're looking and getting emails probably themselves, like I get, of everyone and the dog. I don't know how many I get a month, probably, or a day or a week. I probably get 10 a week. I think that's a safe estimate.
Yeah. I think with so many companies moving online, it's kind of like a gold rush, right? So everybody wants to get in on it, right? And with the freedom of information that we have now, YouTube and Google and all these things. I mean, you can get a pretty good base level of information. And then there's lots of people selling courses, and that will increase your education as well, and so on and so forth. So it doesn't surprise me, nor does it bother me that people all over the world want to take advantage of this opportunity, because I was teaching people how to do this in 2004, telling everybody they should learn how to do this. Like it's such a valuable skill, right?
Right.
But the more sales you want to do, the more complex it becomes, and the more astute the consumer becomes, and the more small hinges swing big doors, right? If you're spending $50 a day, it doesn't really matter if you screw up a couple days, right? If you're spending $5,000 a day and you screw up, it's a big deal, right? And you don't, and screwing up doesn't even necessarily mean doing something wrong. It could just be like a shift in, in customer behavior. It could be an off day. A hurricane could be going through Texas like today, and that could impact everybody's conversions. Trump and Biden can be spending $1.6 million a day on ads right now, jacking everybody's costs up. I mean, there's so many things that influence the ecosystem that, when you want to do it right, you have to find somebody who's aware of all of those things and can adjust quickly and accordingly to allow you to survive, those scenarios and continue to grow. Right.
Right.
And there's this layer, there's levels and there's layers and details in between all the different growth stages of where you want to be. And so, people will come to us knowing that I know the steps that should happen in every offer, the follow-up should happen in every offer, the targeting, the ad style, the different channels, Facebook, Instagram, Google, YouTube, GDN, and beyond. And the experience and the reputation has allowed me to bring on, those types of clients that are either well capitalized starting from the beginning, or they already have momentum and they just want to grow faster. Right.
Well, so you run into probably this similar situation, like when we're out, doing and talking about sales enablement and training or consulting ROI. So people, if I said, Aaron, if you give me $1, I'll give you 10, you're going to do that trade every day, all day long. But there's literally people who will be like, well, what's the catch? Why would I give you $1? And I'm like, because you're going to get 10.
Right.
So, and that's probably the difference I find between the amateurs or the low cost offerings and the elite level firms that specialize in delivering high-end value. And it's not for everyone. You're a niche digital marketing agency, and I get it, but what sort of ROI, because when that question probably comes up to you, you have to deal with this, I'm sure, with every single client. What sort of ROI are we looking at if we're going to be spending hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars a month? What is my expected ROI? What does that conversation look like for you? If you feel comfortable answering that.
Oh yeah, it happens all the time, because we're a metrics driven company. We have those conversations with the clients right out of the gates. And the first things that we're doing is we're looking at where they're currently at to find out where the baseline is. Is it a good offer? Is it not a good offer? What do we need to adapt? What do we need to change? And we've got to create timelines around that and so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, in the e-commerce world, we're striving for a what we call a 3 ROAS, which is like ROI, but it's return on ad spend, right? We're striving for a 3 ROAS or higher. And when we're talking about information marketers, people selling courses and services and things like that, we're looking for north of a 5 ROAS with people. And we're looking for it at scale. It's not difficult to spend $100 and get, $300 in sales, a 3 ROAS. It's considerably more difficult to do it spending $1,000 a day. It's considerably more difficult to do it spending $10,000 a day. If it wasn't difficult, nobody would be in the stock market making 10% a year. Everybody would be in digital marketing making 300% a day, right? But it's difficult, and it's limited. There is a limit to it, right? You know, that's why the stock market works, is because it's so massive and infinitely scalable that you can consistently do a 10% return, right?
And you aren't using the same strategy perpetually with everyone because it's a dynamic market that you work in.
Absolutely. And, you know, it's funny that you bring this up today, because I have a client, love the client, super great, awesome, you know, and they said to me, well, we got to $1 million a month in 6 months. You know, are we going to be able to get to 2 million a month in 6 months? And, you know, why would we not be able to get there that fast? And I'm like, well, they're talking about $1 million a month in ad spend, not revenue, ad spend. Right. And so we're doing really well, growing every day, you know, and they want us to go way faster. And I'm having to explain, it's amazing that you got to $1 million a month in ad spend, but it's not equal going from $1 million a month to 2 million a month, because now you have to do everything better because you've already saturated the market quite a bit. You know, if you want to hold the same profitability, right? If it was easy, everyone would just go spend $10 million a month, but spending $1,000 a day is different than 5, is different than 10, is different than 30, is different than 70. You know, it's not easy.
Well, I got the analogy of blackjack and going on a bit of a run, just doubling down, letting it ride. And you're on a 7 win streak. Well, you know, the casinos and that were not built on winners.
That's right.
Right.
100%.
You know, it's it's just not how the world works.
No, and there is a ceiling. I mean, you have an audience for what your product is. And ideally you have a product that either has a large, really, really large audience, so you can scale it really, really large across multiple channels. And, you know, ideally it's a product that doesn't just sell in America, but you could sell it in Australia and Canada and the UK, and maybe you could translate it and do it internationally. And you've got all of that scale. Or if you have a small avatar, like a small audience, then you have a more expensive product. So you don't have to scale, you know, as large to make the revenue that you want to make. But there's a cap everywhere based on the size of your audience. So the goal is to become the best product with your audience and your market, you know, and then you want to go dominate it, and you want to make sure that you treat your customers well, and you've got a good lifetime value, and, you know, eventually you exit it to a big brand or whatever you want to do.
Absolutely. So kind of 2 questions. One, what has changed and become more challenging, if anything, as a result of remote work, you know, due to the pandemic, or just there was a move towards more virtual and remote work anyways, but it certainly got accelerated, and it looks to be something, even when things calm down with the coronavirus, that, you know, we're seeing a lot of research that remote work and even giving up corporate spaces and that, and having that choice ongoing. What challenges has that presented in the industry? And then the second part of that would be, what have been the opportunities in that, and what, you know, one bit of advice would you want to give anyone?
Well, I mean, when you talk about challenges, I think we have to look at the obvious challenge for business owners in general that came from COVID, which is that inventory got slowed down, manufacturing got slowed down, shipping got more expensive, local businesses, you know, brick and mortar businesses, a lot of them got decimated. Everybody's kind of waiting for everything to come back to normal. And I don't think they realize that the normal's not coming back. And you can look at that 2 ways. You can become like super depressed, or you can say, where's the opportunity going to come? And one of the most shocking statistics that I've seen over the last 4 months is that when you look at worldwide retail sales, only 18% of it was online in February. So 18%. Now, the projected timeline for it to reach 33% was 11 years. So 2030. And in 3 months, it went from 18% to 36%.
Wow.
So COVID compressed 10 years of online shopping adoption in 3 months. And a lot of people go, oh, well, when everything opens up, that'll come back down. They're wrong, because the group that it brought in were not avid online shoppers already. They were people that were laggards. They were people that didn't want to get into it. A lot of them were an older generation, et cetera, et cetera. Now they've been forced to do it. They've learned it and they like it.
Habits have changed.
So, about 6 years ago in Victoria, on the West Coast, as you know Victoria well.
I do.
I was telling people I would never in a million years open up any type of business unless it's service-based, brick and mortar, if my life depended on it, because physical exchange of goods is getting way too commoditized and destroyed by the internet. Now, in the last 6 months, it's more than ever. And it's not going back. So there's a new norm. There's a new level.
And one of the only exceptions, and it points to where this might be going, is like the dollar stores and the Dollarama. My sister's a district manager for Dollarama. They're booming, and
they're killing it because it's cheap. It's not worth buying that stuff online with the shipping costs and everything else.
And it's a commodity. And when you're being commoditized, it's a race to the bottom, because it's whoever has the lowest price wins. And
they're immune, right? They're immune because the shipping costs don't make it worth it on $1 or $2 item to order online when they can just go to the dollar store. Right. But you see the places that have been killed: furniture stores, auto parts stores, clothing retailers shutting down,
auto dealerships
getting murdered. And that's an industry that's going to suffer a quicker death than anybody thinks, because people hate auto dealerships. They hate dealing with salespeople in auto dealerships. And now your Carvanas and people like that are like, hey, just put your credit card in online and we'll drop the car off at your house. And people are like, thank God, right? So this isn't like a story of doom and gloom. It's understanding that money has shifted. Yes. It hasn't gone away. It just shifted. And now people are making transactions in a different place. So your business either needs to adapt with more online offerings or create new online offerings, or you potentially need to diversify into another business that is more in that world, and one of the examples that I saw of that is my friend here owns 10 restaurants. I mean, talk about businesses that got decimated. I mean, where we live, there's 80% of the business is tourists, and the airports are closed. So, you compare that to like a Canada or the US, they got hurt. This got decimated. And what they did is they immediately shifted all of their marketing to, takeout and pickup, and they spun up an app and they did all this stuff, and, kind of like they have in Canada and delivery services and stuff. And they're holding their own until tourism starts back up and they can get back to, the more normalcy. Right. And so for us, we tripled in business over the last 4 months because there's been more people at home because of COVID shopping, and there's been more businesses pivoting online than ever before, and they were looking for an expert to help them get their stuff to the masses.
Right.
So there's huge opportunities right now that are happening at the same time as this cataclysmic devastation in these other industries.
Absolutely. And it's what is the opportunity, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it's the whole growth mindset that we've talked about on previous, you know, and it's all feedback, whether we're enjoying successes or setbacks. If we see it as feedback, we don't get hung up on and get complacent when we're successful. But when we're kicked down, you know, we can at least look for the way out and what's the pivot or solution. So great advice.
About this with people before, like I've lost, because I've been an entrepreneur my whole life, I've lost it all twice.
Yes.
And I've had to build from scratch, which is very, very common with people who've been entrepreneurs their whole life.
Correct.
And I wrote an article the other day about the timeout. Like sometimes God gives you a timeout and says, go to your room and think about what you're doing for a while. And the whole world seems to be collapsing around you. And you're like, how did this happen? What did I do to put myself in this space? And that timeout moment, I believe, is really designed for your next phase of growth, where you can sit down and you can look at your strengths, you can look at your weaknesses, you can look at the things that you should have maybe seen on the horizon, the improvements you need to make. And, you know, my last time out was about 5 years ago. And, you know, I looked at my finances. I looked at, you know, how arrogant I was with my belief that I could make money on demand. You know, I looked at my network, how I had sort of abandoned it just to be solely focused on one thing and not staying connected to people. There was a whole bunch of things I had done that, you know, when I had my time out and I had to go and lick my wounds and think about things, it prepared me for this next journey where, you know, I started to put lessons in play that I hadn't before. I have, you know, diversifying my income streams, you know, making sure that I don't have all my eggs in one basket. You know, making sure that I'm living on 20% of what I make and I've got cash reserves at all times, you know, making sure that I'm connecting with people all the time, people like you, because your network is such a powerful thing. And when you're stuck and you don't know what to do, the best thing you can do is just start talking to other people, not with an agenda like, hey, help me. Yeah. Right. But like, hey, what's going on? What's going on in your world? You know, what are you working on? Because ideas come up and opportunities come up. And, you know, if you shut that network off, you shut yourself off to what's next, you know? So I really put a stronger emphasis on those things. And as a result, the next transition in my business life was exponentially better than the last one. And of course, I don't want another time out, you know. I'm certainly hoping that I've learned enough lessons that it won't happen. But if it does, I'm going to know that there's something else that I have to learn that I still haven't learned yet. And so for all those people that are in that situation right now in COVID, you know, this is your opportunity to reset, you know, become what you really want to become in the next phase of your life and have that quiet timeout moment. Because let's be honest, like when we're in the throes of being busy, like it's clouds and dirt, right? And 90% of the time we're in the dirt. We're not up in the clouds, like looking over.
We need to get above the weeds sometimes.
We got to get above the weeds sometimes and go, man, I'm just in perpetual motion. I'm not actually going anywhere. You know, I'm just busy being busy.
Or if you are, you don't know if you're going down this.
Exactly. You're just one step in front of the other. And this big global timeout, you know, does give people who want to see it that way an opportunity to go, you know, was I really chasing like a bad idea? Was I like, have I really like foregoed my education? Have I really like stopped evolving, you know, and make a decision about what they want to be in the next phase of life? Mm-hmm. You know, and if you can look at it through that filter, it can be hugely beneficial. And I get it. It sucks at the time.
And liberating.
It can be hugely liberating.
Right. But it's surrendering too. Like part of it is when you're in that space, right? In that timeout that you talk about, it's that point where You've tried to do everything on your own power and strength and expertise and experience to do it, and nothing that you try and do is working, and you just put your hands up and this is a timeout, and you have to surrender, and that's when stuff
and the ego has a hard time dealing with it, and I've been there multiple times where I'm like fighting to the bitter end, and
Right.
one of the businesses that me from, like, I chased it a year longer than I should have, because I was like, I got all these people counting on me. I've got,
Right.
I've said I do what I say I'm going to do. I'm going to, and I dragged myself into this, pit, based on ego, where probably a solid year earlier, I should have been like, this is a bad idea. I'm out, and moved on. Right. And a lot of the times, like, we're so in those trenches that just trying to one step in front of the other, we don't take a step back and really look at it and go, is this really what I want to be doing? Is this really a good idea? Is this really like where the foundation, my future is going to get built on?
Absolutely. And something I want to come back to that you said, and I know it's my biggest asset that I hold dearly, and I've been told by others it's my biggest asset, and it has nothing to do with me. Well, or it has very little to do with me. Hopefully that has something to do with me, is the network. And you said, like, and we can lose sight of that. Or even in our relationships, it's our relationships and our connectedness, because there's such a synergy and a compounding effect when we bring that to the table, because it's not just Aaron Parkinson, it's not Corey Sigvaldson, it's that and this team that's so big behind. But the strength of those relationships and that is what makes it supercharged in essence. But when we get busy and more successful, we neglect watering the garden, so to speak. And I'm telling you, it's the biggest lesson I've learned in those timeouts, is to make sure I don't lose sight of that. And also to use the gardening analogy, you water and take care of those good ones, and you have to prune and, take out some of the weeds.
Yeah. I mean, that's almost a whole another different conversation, but I've been working on this concept in my head for a while, where I kind of feel like we've got multiple fires that fuel our life, right? We've got, our family, we've got our finance, we've got our fitness,
Mm-hmm.
we've got our followers. And, if you're a person of faith, you've got your faith. So,
Absolutely.
they all were F's, right? They sort of seem to line up in my head.
Yeah.
And I look back at the times where things went off the rails, and there's something I neglected to stoke in those fires. And, in my last time out, the two that I realized I had let go were my finance and my followers. I put myself in a bubble, and so I not only could I not leverage, their power, but I probably could have had a lot of conversations with people who were outside of the bubble, who could have said, are you like sure that this thing over here is like going the right, like they could have probably drawn my awareness to it earlier, that
They could have helped with the course correct.
They could have helped with the course correct, right? Or maybe they could have brought the assets and the resources in to correct the course, right? Or, there's any number of things, right? And in addition to that, you look at people's net worth. Most of the biggest net worth people people know them,
Mm-hmm.
right? And sometimes those are big networks of millions of, they're big networks of millions of followers. You see like, guys like The Rock or whatever, like they can just launch a product anytime they want. And it's a bestseller because it's got a zillion followers. Or sometimes it's a really astute business person who has less followers, but they're significantly more powerful, impactful people that can open any door they want, to help that person. Right. And then when you look at the finance side for me, I was so focused on like just trying to move everything forward that I was ignoring my finance. I mean, I worked for free for the entire last year and just ate through all my savings. And then you wake up one day and you go, yo, like, I got to feed my family. Like, clearly this isn't working out when I can't, I remember my wife saying like, I don't know if I can afford to buy this extension cord for the Christmas lights.
Yeah.
When you start having those conversations, you might need a course correct,
Right. Yeah. So I kept my word and my integrity, but what else did I lose by doing it?
Right. How many years did I lose off my life, and, how many gray hairs did I gain and, blah, 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 blah. So, going back to the timeout conversation, a lot of the world is in that timeout scenario right now, and you can choose to make the best of it or the worst of it. It's how you want to approach it.
I love it. So, I mean, you've been a high performer, whether it was sports or the multiple businesses. What are some of your success habits that keep you at the top of your game?
Well, I think this is a constant battle. I mean, I'm not one of those people that's perfect. That's for sure. I know some people that are like super, super regimented.
No one is. No one walks on water unless it's frozen.
I like that. I like that a lot. What I attempt to be consistent at is number one, which surprises a lot of people. I go to bed every night at 8:30.
Excellent.
Now I wake up at 5:30. But I feel like so many people undervalue sleep. And if you're stressed, or if you're processing a lot of ideas, or if you're having a lot of conversations or making a lot of decisions, your brain needs time to recover, and it recovers while you're sleeping. And so for me,
number one performance enhancer. I was involved in a sleep company called Comfort Linen. Yeah. So
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And it's literally, in terms of performance, all we need to do is go think of the last time we didn't get a good sleep and what it did and felt like and how it affected performance. Most people get it. But Tom Brady, arguably one of the best, if not the best quarterback ever, says he likes 11 hours sleep a day. Yeah. So when I hear 8:30 to 5:30, and the 8 hours that we hear, people don't realize, like, they think that's an average, that's a guideline. That was the minimum. When that was thrown out, that was supposed to be the minimum.
I don't know what the minimum should be. And I think that everybody's body chemistry is different. Like my wife, like if she sleeps 6 hours, she's good, but if I sleep even one less hour than 9, I feel it all day. If I sleep 7, I'm almost useless. If I sleep 6, it's a complete write-off. I know how much it impacts my mental performance, and no amount of coffee or exercise or anything is going to fix that. I call it credits. If I need to take a nap, I'm down a credit, and I'll go recharge 1 credit, and then I'm good to go again. Right. So for brain power, sleep is one of the non-negotiables for me, that I sleep 9 hours a minimum a night, every night. Number 2, I like to get up early. That's why I go to bed at 8:30. So I get up at 5:30, and I like to have the time when nobody's bothering me, to be, to think, to be productive, to plan my day out. And Robin Sharma has a great framework you can use called 20-20-20. And I'm sure you probably heard before.
Well, in his last book, The 5 a.m. Club, it's literally called The 5 a.m. Club.
I didn't know that, but I've watched a few podcasts about them, and I like to have a routine in the morning that doesn't involve me picking up my phone and looking at my email first thing, right? I don't want to put myself into fight or flight mode right in the morning. So I get up, he recommends 20 minutes of exercise, then 20 minutes of, journaling, gratitude planning, and then 20 minutes of learning, that like really sets you in the right motion, and I'll either do that or I'll go to the gym first and then I'll come back and do the other two.
Yeah.
So it's sort of one or two throughout the morning. One of the things that I've done over the last 3 months, which has been really interesting, is I shut off all the notifications on my phone and my computer. Yeah. And my wife, it drives her crazy because she's like, I'm texting you, you're not responding, like all this stuff. And I've just like, I've got Skype, Slack, WhatsApp, text, email, Facebook, Instagram. All that is people saying me all day long. And I was finding myself like doing this like for 10 hours a day. Yeah. And then the day would end and I have no idea what I accomplished. Yeah. I did nothing actually productive.
Well, there's something called task residue as well. And the task switching that we do. So the minute we are in the middle of doing some deep work and we see a notification and go off, there's, if it's a short little thing, it's about a 7-minute. But if it's something we literally jump out of what we're doing and go in to do, it's 20 minutes of task residue.
Because I feel like you almost have to like kick the brain into gear to get back to what you were doing, and so that makes sense to me. And I just felt like it was a pinata, and when I went and I looked at, my phone has like a screen time thing. Screen time thing was like going up. And I was like, what benefit am I getting from this? And the problem too is that when you're responding to it all day, you're training people to believe that they're going to get a response from you in 1 minute. So then when you don't, then they're like all bent out of shape about it, and it creates this like super vicious cycle, so I will get up early. I will exercise. I will learn. I will journal. I will make my top 3 things I want to get accomplished for the day. And I'll make it a goal to get at least one of them done and out of the way to feel productive before I open up my email and go through and make sure I've put out any fires and blah, 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 blah. And then I do my best to shut it off again and go into number 2, go into number 3, and I feel like that's made a huge impact on my sanity and my peace of mind. I think people are getting way, way too addicted to the dings and the beeps and the whatever.
Oh, it's like Pavlov's dog. It's like beep. We're like, ugh.
Yeah, absolutely.
And our head naturally goes down and it's like crazy.
And it's because we get this little like drop of like serotonin like every time we answer something because it mirrors productivity, right? And so it's like this, or dopamine, I can't remember, it's like this dopamine hit like every time you do it, and it becomes an addiction. But we only have 24 hours in a day and I sleep 9 of them, right? So that means I'm down from 24 to 15, and I want to spend some time with my family. I want to go to the gym. I need to make sure that a big portion of my time is dedicated to those F's, right? So, I want to make sure I can get on your podcast. I want to make sure I can get on Mike Dillard's podcast yesterday, or, whatever. I want the follower side. I want to make sure I can take care of my finance a little bit, my fitness, my family. Those are the high productivity things. Yeah. That you've got to carve out time for.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that faith one is what I find for me is the grounding. That's the foundation and the grounding. And when stuff's going sideways, that's what keeps me going.
I agree with you. Like, I was having this conversation with somebody yesterday because it's been a crazy week. Like I had a lot of fires this week, a lot of like weird things come curveballs and stuff. And when I'm focused on those things, it's very draining. Mm-hmm. When I'm focused on gratitude, it's very empowering, right? Because when you're staying in that state of gratitude, it's like the closest connection to God or whatever you believe in, right? Mm-hmm. And when you're always in gratitude, fear disseminates, the volume goes down, whatever. So I find it's this constant game of like, how often can I keep myself in a state of gratitude? And the more I can keep myself in a state of gratitude, the better the world is. And the world isn't any better. It's just how I'm filtering it, So that's where that last F, may come into play.
Absolutely. And I love that you're talking about gratitude. I don't know if you've noticed what my sign off is on all my emails.
I did notice it, actually.
Okay. Yeah. So, obviously that's a big piece of who I am, and to show my gratitude to people like yourself. And, I always sign off with gratitude, even when it's with some of those people who are just jerks sometimes, right? In the moment, I may not necessarily be feeling it, even though I'm sending it, but I do know beyond a shadow of a doubt, like whether it's hours, weeks, days later, there's something that's learned even from those negative things that I'm grateful for that. So I love it. So Aaron, in the last little bit of time here, as we wind up, what I was going to go with the 100th birthday celebration, but I'm going to change it up.
Okay.
What is next for you? If you win that $50 billion lottery and you can do anything in the world to create impact, health, money, and time don't hold you back. What is it you would love to do in the legacy part of your career?
I have an idea of what I would like to do, but I think only time will tell, because you see things through different filters at different times. And so in my mind, here I have this idea of starting a free school teaching locals how to do digital marketing, because there's not a lot of industry here. And it's really, you can be a lawyer, a banker, or, an accountant.
Right.
And so if you're not one of those things, you're kind of like tossed aside, right? There's not like a lot of farming trade schools, like things like that, but they got a great digital tech hub. So I think starting a free school, teaching people the power of digital marketing could open up a whole new avenue for people who feel like they don't have one, like they're the forgotten people here on the island. And I think that would be very cool, because I love to teach. I love to analyze ideas and structure and things like that. And I think it would be very fulfilling on a day-to-day basis if money was no object. That being said, my plan is to retire for the second time by 45. I'm 43 now. And I've told everybody I'm going to retire for a year. And all I'm going to do is work out, spend time with my family, travel, and be grateful. Like, just see like, what kind of level of gratitude could I reach in that full year, becoming the best physical, spiritual version of myself. To which all my friends, including my wife, have said, that's absolute bullshit. You will be doing something within 1 month. So I guess we'll have to see what's in the cards when I'm 40.
It. Well, I'm going to be reaching out to you when you're 46.
Okay, perfect. We'll have to do a follow-up episode.
I think we're doing the follow-up on that 1 year, because I'll roll the dice on this one, Aaron. I think you actually do it. I think you do the full year. And I think a 2-year runway right now with the momentum, that's doable for you, because you built up a team of, I think you're about 50 people, 50 people now.
People at any given time, yeah.
Yeah. So you're going to be 2 years from now, you're able to step back from the company, I would think. 2 years is enough time to transition.
Looking to exit 2 SaaSes. Go Pipeline Pro is one. Drop Funnels is another one that I have an equity stake in. Probably the agency, go find somebody like Gary Vaynerchuk and maybe merge with Mile Media or something like that. And just be what it feels like to literally need for nothing and not have a single soul want anything from you for 1 year. I'm really interested to see what that experience is like. I want to experience it just for the sake of experiencing it.
I want you to experiment with it first, and then I'll see if that's going to be my cup of tea. So I'm banking on you to do this, man, because I want you to be the experiment.
You want me to be the guinea pig?
Yeah, be my guinea pig. You know, our friend Nolan Clark says, be my huckleberry. I want you to be my guinea pig.
Perfect. I'm in. I'm committed to it.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for your time today. And thank you, Hawk Nation podcast members. Looking forward to seeing you next week.